Hello, everyone. It is a rainy, cloudy day here in Cleveland, Ohio. No surprises there, but I kind of wanted to spend this cloudy, slow day for me talking about basically doing a video that's completely the opposite of the video that I just uploaded. The video I just uploaded, I gave myself like 10 minutes to talk about some books that I was reading, and I wanted to see how much I could get done in like a rapid fire way. But today I wanted to do the complete opposite of that, and settle down with a very long and robust tag. The get to know my tastes tag. I really don't know much about it. I just saw that it was going around, and I thought I'd just kind of jump into the questions blind and kind of fire from the hip in terms of my answers and stuff. So, if you got homework to do, you can do that. And just put this video on in the background or something like that, because this will probably be one of the longest videos I've made. I mean, it's 15 questions, and I'm probably not going to edit this. I'm just going to kind of throw it up there raw, and just kind of, come what will, just kind of put it out there. So, question 1: how do you rate books? Give a quick rundown of how you do your star ratings, or if you don't use star ratings, how do you evaluate books? I don't do star ratings, and I don't do any sort of official capacity for rating books, especially because I'm not a book reviewer. I don't have any sort of real incentive to give them like star ratings or something like that. However, if you've been following me for a bit, you know that I, at the end of every month, rank the books that I read, and I have a couple of tiers for that. There's the bottom tier, which is the just no tier. This is like a book that's just dead on arrival. Then above that is the not right now, I guess, tier. It's for books that I didn't like, maybe didn't even finish, but books that there might be some hope to them. I might return to them at some point, give them a second shot. They're not completely dead on arrival. And then there's the one above that is the I could have lived without it, I guess, tier. So just okay. A book that certainly wasn't bad, but also definitely didn't stick with me in any sort of meaningful way. And then above that was the glad I read it. Is the glad I read it tier. Above that is the can't wait to read it again tier. So a book that was really good, and I want to spend time to read it again. And then above that is it's in the canon. So it's in my personal canon of books that I've read, and it meant a lot to me. And then above that is the grow old together tier, which is like the top tier, like the tier reserved for like the Iliad, the tier reserved for like Moby Dick, like the tier reserved for like the top highest books ever. And that's recent. That's a recent thing. I was not doing that before I had a BookTube channel. So certainly I had no real incentives to rank books before in any sort of organized manner. But now I've created that tier list for myself, and even if I stopped doing BookTube today, I love that. I love that list. I think it's great. I think almost everything that I read fits into one of those perfectly. And that's how you know, I think, that you've created a good tier list, is if there aren't like a million exceptions, like, oh gosh, I wish there was a tier for this, I wish there was a tier for that. Pretty much everything I read can fit into one of those, and so I'm happy with that. But that would be how I rate books. I don't do a star rating or anything like that. Number 2 is, how do you approach reviewing books? What is your review style? Are you analytical, emotional, casual, or structured? Well, I don't review anything in any sort of formal capacity. However, I've practiced at it a couple of times, and I've really enjoyed it when I've practiced it. But it does take a lot of time and effort to do. I would say that. So I certainly don't have a style yet, for sure. But one of the most the video that I made, and I also wrote a review for it, just privately. That book, um, Careless People, that came out, that memoir about Facebook. I read that, and I was reviewing it in a video, talking about my experiences with it, and a lot of people said a lot of positive things about it. But I also think that there was some confusion that relates to me on my end, which is that the way that I would review a memoir like that is the same way that I would review a work of history or a work of scholarship, where a monograph of some sort, let's say, where it's basically I know it's a memoir, but it has a conclusion. And like any sort of piece of history or any sort of academic argument, that has a thesis and, a methodology, that type of thing, the author is going to spend time, documenting certain things, walking you through certain pieces of evidence and whatnot. And then at the end, they're going to come to a conclusion based on all of that. And I was reviewing the memoir in much the same way, and I think that people, and again, this is nobody's fault, but I think that people kind of got confused on that, because all I was saying was that, like, yeah, sure, as a memoir, like, it was enjoyable, but the conclusion that she reached was wrong. It was incorrect. It was not the correct conclusion to reach, and I'm certain of that. And there are. And so I was treating it in a very analytical way, and I think that for a memoir, maybe people were confused why I would be doing that. But all of that is to say that I'm always, if I'm going to review something, I don't really know how to review anything in a way that wouldn't be analytical. Wouldn't be in a very sort of academic, viewing it in a sort of academic way of like, okay, what's your thesis? What are you trying to do? And then how do you succeed at doing that? Or do you succeed in doing that? What are the strategies that you use? What are the techniques that you use? What's the evidence that you bring up? And then do you succeed in what you were trying to do? And I think it applies to memoirs, like I just mentioned. I think it also, to a certain extent, applies to fiction, though, of course, not all fiction. And, of course, I wouldn't feel qualified to critique really any fiction or review any fiction in any real formal capacity. But I do think that it is possible to walk into a piece of fiction with sort of the same things in mind and say, okay, what is this author trying to do? And then how well do they accomplish it, or do they accomplish it well at all? And then going at it like that, I think, is the way that I would do it. And it's a very analytical way of doing it, but I think that it would be the way that would be the most conducive to the way that I read anything, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. It's just like, that's how I perceive things, is like, what is somebody trying to do? How are they doing it? And then do they succeed at doing it? That is just the elements of what a review is to me. And it's the elements of what makes fiction, nonfiction, that type of thing. Regardless, I mean, somebody's showing up on the page for a reason. They're writing a book for a reason. They're making an argument for a reason. And I think it's just important to, for me, it's like, well, what is that reason? Find out what that reason is, and then make your evaluation based on what that reason is and whether or not they succeed at doing it. So anyway, number 3 is, what's the book that made you a reader? Whether it was your first favorite or the one that got you hooked. What book started it all? Well, I actually answered this in the in my BookTube newbie tag video. I can't remember the name of it, but it was some monograph on the house church community in early Christian communities, the house church model, I should say, in early Christian communities. And the reason for that was that I was living at somebody's house who was studying to get a PhD, and they had really bad dyslexia, and they asked me to read this book into a tape recorder, and I said sure, and I certainly wasn't much of a reader at the time at all, but I was reading this like really dry and dense monograph, and I was just like, this is actually super interesting and cool. And I'm following along and I'm getting it. And it was really since then that I've been reading it. So I can't remember the name of it, but it was just some book on house church communities in the early centuries of Christianity. It is so dark out. Oh my gosh, it is like pitch black out for being 2 p.m. That's just crazy. Let's see. Do you have a genre niche? Are there certain genres you gravitate toward, or do you read widely across genres? What a great question. Well, okay. I would say that I have a really wide base of interest, and I always have. I always have. There's very few things that I'm just like categorically not interested in. I'm categorically not interested in philosophy. So a couple of people have asked me whether or not I've read this piece of philosophy or that piece of philosophy. Maybe I have, but I read it in a different world and in a different life, and I am no longer interested in it. So I'm not interested in philosophy. I'm not interested in theology. I've read a fair amount of theology. I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested in self-help. That's a big one. Not interested in self-help. So there's a couple of things that I'm not interested in, but the reason I phrase it like that is because there's so many more things that I'm not interested in than I am interested in. Wait, no, it's the other way around. There are so many more things that I'm interested in than I'm not interested in that it's easier to say what I'm not interested in than it is to say what I am interested in, because really, if you were to go by what I am interested in, it's like almost everything. Like, and there's so many things I'm interested in reading. And there's really, outside of those three categories and maybe a few things that I'm forgetting, I'll read pretty much anything. I don't need much convincing, especially if somebody is telling me, like, oh, this is really good and I really enjoyed it. I've given a lot of chances to a lot of different things that I've had bad experiences with, and I'm always disappointed when I also don't like something that I have my spidey senses going off telling me I don't think you'll like this. Like, I'm disappointed. I want the book to prove me wrong. For example, murder mysteries. I've talked about that before. Not very into murder mysteries at all. But I keep trying, and every time I'm like, this will be the one, and I'm like, nope. Just it doesn't. I don't care. It's not working for me. Same thing with like noir, crime fiction. Doesn't work for me, and I've tried a lot of different books on that. Just doesn't work for me. There's just a lot of things that don't work for me, but even still, like I don't write it off in the same way that I write off like a lot of pieces of philosophy and stuff like that. So, but the first was, do I have a genre niche? No, there's nothing. I mean, there are certain things, I've talked about it before, but I'm really into the Reformation. There are certain things in nonfiction that I'm like especially interested in. But I wouldn't consider that a genre niche, and I don't think anybody else would either. So I don't know if you can hear that thunder. It is raining cats and dogs out there. It's one of those days that you appreciate being indoors. Let's see. What's a book you love so much that you don't care if others don't like it? Oh, goodness. What's that one book you love enough for? Wait, what's that one book you love enough for everyone? I don't know what that means. What's a book you love so much you don't care if others don't like it? What's that one book you love enough for everyone? Like to share with everyone or to tell everyone about? I don't know. Well, the first part I like a lot. What is a book you love so much you don't care if others like it? I think it's Moby Dick because I love Moby Dick. I absolutely love Moby Dick, and I've heard so many people tell me that they think Moby Dick is boring that I just don't care anymore. Like it doesn't bother me. And in fact, it doesn't even get me angry. I just go, okay, I mean, I understand. Some people think it's boring. Like, that's just the reputation it has, and a lot of people think it is, and a lot of people are like, I don't care about whale anatomy, and I'm like, okay. Like, okay. Like, it's like, it's not even like I'm being judgmental. It's just like, I get it. Like, it's not for you, and you don't like it, but it doesn't inspire me to go on, like, long diatribes and be like, you don't get it, you don't understand, like, there's so much more to this, and there's, like, I mean, I think it is like if you like it, cool. If you don't, cool. Like I'm not going to die on a hill for it. And it just doesn't bother me. But it also doesn't take away from my enjoyment of it at all. Like there are certain things that I've read, and I'm not going to go into a long list of them because it'll it could get awkward doing this. But there are some books that I've read that I've just been like, this is so good. I don't know how you can't like it. And the fact that I've heard people say that they don't like it is just baffling to me. It's just absolutely baffling to me. There's many books like that. Again, I'm not going to go into them because I don't want to get all. I don't want it to get all awkward. But it is. Moby Dick is not one of those books. Moby Dick is not one of those books. I love Moby Dick. I absolutely love Moby Dick. It's one of my favorite books that I've ever read. But if you don't like it, like. Cool, like more power to you, I guess. That does not keep me up at night like some other books do. Number 7 is what's a book you love so much that if someone doesn't like it, your reading tastes don't align. And the book or books where a difference of opinion is a strong indicator of a different reading preferences. I mean, there's the Iliad. I mean, I don't. I think there are people out there who don't like who have. It's got to be that, right? I mean, I just don't understand how you can't like the Iliad, and if you don't, I don't think that we could really maybe our reading tastes won't align, I guess. But the other thing is, like I mentioned, like my reading is very broad, and there's a lot of things that I'm interested in, and there's a lot of things that I like that I guess I don't philosophically agree with that question because I think that it's possible for at least me in my case to be like. Okay, even in the case that you don't like the Iliad, I'm sure if you're a reader, like there's something we can agree on. I think it's more like the opposite, where it's like if the person I'm talking to is gushing over Brandon Sanderson, then I'm like, oh, our reading tastes probably don't align because it's not that I don't like Brandon Sanderson. It's like I just have no interest whatsoever. So we probably don't have a ton of things in common that we've read because I'm just not a big a big fantasy fan, and especially like contemporary fantasy, which dominates the internet, And you know what's funny, because I was watching a video the other day, where somebody was talking about how. She was talking about how she thought that nonfiction was given preference over fiction, and I understood what she was saying in the context of what she was saying in the video that she was talking about. But I also cannot agree with that point, because whether or not it's considered more serious to read nonfiction, I don't know, maybe it is. But in terms of like the internet, in terms of like the internet attention that you can get, in terms of like the conversations that people are having on the internet, like it is 1,000 to 1 fiction to nonfiction, and then 1,000 to 1 fantasy to just other types of fiction. I mean, people love talking about modern fantasy, and it's cool for them because like it's actively getting published and there's news about it. There are people who talk about what the newest updates in the fantasy world, like who's writing what and when it'll be coming out and what kind of drama is happening in it. Like there's a whole sort of apparatus around fantasy on the internet, and I think that if somebody is plugged into that, like that is an indicator that our reading tastes don't align. Because I've watched some of that stuff, and those people are plugged in, and I have no idea what they're talking about a lot of times. Like they're talking about they've got acronyms for things that I've never even heard of before. They've got so much. Just so much. There's terms for things. There's lore. I mean, I know fantasy is filled with lore, but there's lore about talking about fantasy. I mean, it's crazy. There's all this stuff. I think that's a much more solid indicator that somebody is a reader, has reading tastes that don't align with mine. Because it's just not. That's just not how I read. That's not what I read. That's not what I seek out when I'm reading. And like that, there's a whole apparatus there that is completely. I'm completely alien to. Like I have it means nothing to me. I have no idea what they're talking about. So, anyway, let's see. Yeah. So then 8 is, what is your quote unquote trash pocket? What books, tropes, or themes that are bad, but you love them anyway? I don't know. I don't read trash, and that's not a badge of sophistication. I wish I read trash. I think it's an actual badge of sophistication if you do read trash, because that means that you know so much about books that you know what's bad, and then you know what is good bad, like the enjoyable kind of bad. I don't. I'm that way with movies. There's certain trash movies that I like, but I am not that way with books. I am not well read enough to know where to seek the trash out, to enjoy the trash, to savor the trash. I don't have that kind of knowledge in terms of, because we're talking about fiction here, right? When we're talking about trash, I mean all those categories in terms of tropes, themes. That's usually in reference to fiction. Like trash nonfiction is just not worth reading generally, unless you're like sadomasochistic. You like ripping books apart, or like like really but you can't even argue with a trash piece of nonfiction, because it's like a trash piece of nonfiction is just like, it's just not. It's one of those things where it's not even wrong. It's just like, this is garbage, and you just want to like just roll your eyes and throw in the trash. But fiction, on the other hand, there can be, of course, pieces of garbage, fiction-wise, that can be enjoyable and might be worth reading for you personally. And I'd love to find my trash. What was the term? My trash pocket. I'd like to find my trash pocket. That'd be fun. And we have an event on BookTube for that, right? Garb August. Where we read garbage. I've never participated, and I wouldn't know where, but I might this year. I should read at least one piece of garbage. Just ask someone like Steve Donahue to give me, like, what is a piece of garbage that you think I would like, and just fall in love with reading garbage from there. Number 9 is, do you have any deal breakers in books? Something that, if present, immediately turns you off from a book? My initial inclination to a question like this is to say no, because I'm such an open mind. But there is an answer, and that is typically any instance in which I think somebody is being completely monotone. I hate monotone characters. I hate them. It drives me crazy, and it's been driving me crazy more and more and more as I've read more, as I've just consumed more media. I hate it. I hate when a character is the same way in every single scene, when a character is either hysterical in every scene or depressed in every scene, or especially those two, because those get especially grating on me. And there's so many characters in so many pieces of media that are like that. I was watching Everyone did it because it was re-released in theaters. The third Star Wars movie, Revenge of the Sith, I think it's called, and that one. In that one, it just like Anakin. Oh my God, is so annoying because he is the same in every single scene. Like literally every single scene, he acts the same way, talks the same way, has the same problems. Just never, and it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. And there are certain books that have characters in them that are like that, and I just want to fucking just beat them over the head with something, so that they, just do something different, have some kind of emotional reaction to something that's different from the way that they are usually reacting to things. I mean, it's so annoying. It drives me crazy. So that is a deal breaker for me typically. If you've got a character that's the same in every single scene they're in, I just can't stand that. Then number 10 is, what's a strong opinion you have about a book released within the last year, whether it's overrated, underrated, or just a take you need to share? Well, I just did that yesterday. I talked about Henry V, by Dan Jones, and said how I didn't like it. So I would say that that's kind of overrated. Not for me at the very least. I also talked about recently Lyndall Roper's great book on the German Peasants' War, which came out this year, and that's fantastic. I thought it was a really, really great book, and a really, really useful book, if you're interested in the German Peasants' War, for sure, because there are a ton of readily available studies in English on the subject. And, I really want to read the new Diarmuid McCullough, Lower Than the Angels. Oh, my God. I want to read that so badly. I saw that in the Barnes & Noble recently, and I was like, I should get it. And then I saw it was $40, and I was like, I can't do that right now. And I want to read more Diarmuid McCullough before I read Lower Than the Angels anyway. But God, if a book was ever written to up my alley, like that is just everything. I mean, great author, great subject, mighty theme, just perfect for me. So definitely want to read that. Okay. So then, number 11 is, what do you look for in writing? What makes a book stand out to you? Is it prose style, themes, voice, structure, or something else? Is it prose style, theme? Well, I love when books are written well. If it feels like a book is written with a style that is unique to it. But of course, you can't separate style and content. You just can't, because in many cases, it's what the author wants to say that again makes them show up on the page. And so that is both a question of content, like what are they actually saying content-wise, and then how are they saying it? So those two things are usually inextricably linked for me. How do I prose style, themes, voice, structure, or something else? I mean, I just think that when an author shows up in the book, and you're like, oh my gosh, like they needed to do this, like they needed to write this book, that this was important to them, this was something that mattered to them, this was something that they were going to pull all the stops out for. When you encounter something like that in a book, it's special, and it means something, and it means something. It transcends time. If somebody is doing that 50 years ago, that book is still great 50 years later. If they're doing it 100 years ago, it's still great 100 years later. Like, just somebody showing up for their own book really, really just it's impossible to ignore. Or at least it's very hard to ignore, and hard not to appreciate, because you're like, oh, there's a person behind this. There's a person behind this. They're doing something, and they're doing something that matters, and they're doing something that means something to them. So I think that really is what I look for in writing. Number 12 is, how do you decide what to read next? Do you plan ahead, mood read, or follow external factors? Hype, recommendations, ARCs? Well, it depends. I mean, this month I'm reading books on the Middle Ages principally, and so that is me following a program or kind of like a syllabus that I've built for myself. And then what I'm going to do next month, a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, but what I'm going to do next month is I'm going to just create a giant pile for myself. And when I want to read something new, I'll grab from that pile. But it'll be very mood based. It won't be like this month where I have like a specific amount of books that I want to get to and specific books that I want to read. Like it'll be like books that I don't have any preference either way toward at the beginning of the month, but as the month goes on, like I might go in certain directions because like there's a bunch of YouTube events, booktube events going on that I want to participate in. There's a bunch of things that I want to read just in general, but I don't have any specific like plans, any specific theme. So I'm just gonna make a big pile of books and just read out of that pile, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. Generally speaking, I am a kind of a mood reader. I certainly don't go based on hype because none of the books that I ever read have hype. Except for maybe like Dan Jones, and I didn't even like it. But I can't go by hype because I don't read things. Generally speaking, the stuff that I read, I don't even see many people talk about on the internet at all, except for if it's like Steve Donahue or something like that. Yeah. Just because, like, again, I think that nonfiction gets a lot less attention than fiction does, and specifically the nonfiction that I like to read. I haven't heard anybody talk about Lyndall Roper's book on the German Peasants' War. Anyone. I just knew about it because I knew who Lyndall Roper was, and I was researching the German Peasants' War a while ago, and I was like, oh my God, there's going to be a book coming out in a couple of months about this? Fantastic. So I was glad to be able to make a video about it just to kind of like, I don't know, put something on YouTube about it. But I that could just be me too, where I'm looking and stuff like that. And it isn't like these things get no attention because they get reviewed. They get reviewed in formal capacities at things like the London Review or the Paris Review or any of the other major publications. But on YouTube and stuff like that, I don't. Where hype comes from, TikTok, places like that, just I could never read based on hype because I just don't see any hype for those books anyway. But then, let's see, number 13, where do you get inspiration for your booktube content? What sparks your ideas, other creators, trends, personal reading experiences, all of those. Other creators for sure. I'll watch somebody's video, and I'll be like, that's fun. Maybe I could do something like that myself. Trends, well, this is kind of a trend because a trend, well, I don't really know if this would count as a trend, but, somebody will be doing a tag like this, and I'll be like, great, let's do that tag. And then personal reading experiences, I would say, is the main one. What I'm reading is why I started this channel and what the focus of this channel is on. What am I reading? What are my reading experiences like? Am I enjoying something? Am I not enjoying something? What am I going to read next? What am I reading right now? That kind of thing. That is what this channel is about. It's just sort of like a documentation of my reading life and interaction with other people's reading lives as well, which is why it's so cool. Because now that I've started BookTube, it's like so hard for me to think about stopping it because all of a sudden it's like, have I always wanted to read more Westerns? Yes. But now I know exactly when to read those Westerns. Next month in June. Because then we have June on the Reins. And it's a perfect opportunity to do it. Have I always wanted to read Lonesome Dove? Yes. Next month is a perfect opportunity to read Lonesome Dove. And I'll be reading it with people who are reading Westerns and reading and talking about the Western genre. I mean, what a great experience, that's just awesome. And so, but then you can make videos about it yourself and you can participate and it's just great. And there's really, I've been talking to people over email about this because people keep reaching out to me talking about BookTube and I've been thinking about starting a BookTube channel and blah, 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 blah. Like the problem that a lot of people face is the problem that I had at the start, and I just want to say that as long as you're participating in the community, it really isn't a problem, which is the issue of I don't know what to make a video about. I mean, look, if you're reading anything, then you've got something to make a video about. Or even if you're not reading, you know how many videos I've seen from people being like, here's 10 books that I want to read. Haven't read any of them. But these are 10 books I want to read. Like that's a video that everyone has made on some level. They put out a TBR. They've talked about, big books I want to read, or there's a million different ways to go about doing it. But I think that you'll never run out of things to talk about if you're actually a reader. You have to be a reader first, and then a content creator second. But you have to be a reader first, and then because then that's where all your ideas come from. That's where all your inspiration for making videos comes from. Let's see here. Number 14. If you could make any book go viral now, what would it be? A book that you think deserves more attention, and why? Oh, many books. Let me think. Well, I was talking with a friend about it. It was weird how I feel like so many more people would enjoy All the King's Men than currently know about it and currently have read it. It's a book that a lot of people could enjoy. It actually isn't a book that you have to be in the right mood, or you have to like really get it. It is a book. I mean, and I've heard a lot of people talk great things about it, but it's certainly not viral. And I think it's a book that certainly shouldn't be forgotten, because it is a book that everyone could enjoy reading. I don't know. I'd have to think more about that. What is a book that I would want more people to read? Oh, I've talked about it before on this channel, but Carl Sagan, The Demon Haunted World, I think is a very important book, a very useful book, and a book that people could get a lot out of if they decided to read anything about science, which is like pulling teeth. Getting somebody to read about science is usually like pulling teeth, but God, what a helpful book! what a helpful book for a modern day. I think that nobody is. You don't have to be a scientist. I'm not a scientist. I don't study science. I'm not a scientist, but you can have some sort of scientific literacy. And you can identify when somebody's being a charlatan, independent of whether or not you've been in the lab and you've got a lab coat and you know how to mix solutions in beakers. I mean, there's ways of practicing a kind of everyday scientific literacy that I think is just all but completely vanished in people's lives. And you've got Carl Sagan writing about this phenomenon decades ago. And if he could only see how bad it's gotten, because it's gotten way worse, way worse. So it would be nice if that book went viral and people were able to read that and just have sort of like a how to identify when somebody is lying to you and being a complete charlatan 101. You know what I mean? That would be helpful. That would be very cool. And then who are some booktubers with reading tastes similar to yours? I would say there's John David, who we've talked together about Princeton University Press and Yale University Press. He's awesome. Then there's, of course, Steve Donahue, who reads way 1,000 times way more than I do. But anytime he talks about new releases, anytime that he talks about his recommendations, his hedgehog recommendations, I eat those up. I absolutely eat those up, because there's just so many books that he recommends. And there will be a couple that I'm like, yeah, I'm not very interested in. When he goes on a Brattle Haul and he brings home some Regency romances or something like that. I'm not super interested in that right now. But there'll be a ton of things in every single one of his videos, literally every single one of his videos that'll be never heard of that book before, fascinated by it, I want to read it right now. And then David Murphy just put out a video, like an apartment tour video, and where he was going over his bookshelves, I should say. And oh my God, I've been watching that video in pieces over the course since he's released it because there's so many book recommendations in it, so many things that are up my alley that I've just been like, my God, I need to I've been taking notes. I've been taking notes. I don't know. It's insane. Like the books that he shows off in that video are like very aspirational to me. They are not books that I've read. Obviously, some of them I have, but the overwhelming majority of them I haven't. But they're aspirational in the sense that like those are books that I want to read at some point. Particularly books about money and the economy. Like I love the practical nature of economies, reading about economies. I know that you can get drowned in theory in that as well, but it's like the antithesis of a lot of what I was reading in philosophy and theology, where it's like, okay, a currency is devalued to the point that it's basically useless. This is an economic crisis, and the only way we're going to get out of it is if we engage in practical solutions. And I love that. I love that because it completely just nullifies the sort of Jordan Peterson strategy of being like, well, what does Dostoevsky have to say about it? Well, have you tried reading The Brothers Karamazov 16 times? Have you tried what does and then Abraham takes his son up onto the mount and he sacrifices him, but then there's a goat. Have you thought about that? And it's like, it's so nice to be in reading about things where the only solutions that will ever work are practical solutions. We're not talking about slaying dragons here. We're talking about making it so that people can afford to buy bread. I don't care what Dostoevsky has to say about it. I don't care what anybody else has to say about it. We're talking about practical solutions to practical problems, and that's the exciting and cool dimension of studying economics. As just an example, it's not just economics. He obviously is like one of the most industrious readers of World War II history that I've ever seen in my entire life, and so that's fascinating too. But there are things like that on his shelves in particular were very aspirational to me. He's a reader that I really, really admire. Obviously, it's hard to admire someone like Steve Donahue because he's a freak. He's inhuman. He's just David Murphy has a job. He needs to sleep like the rest of us. He needs to eat, and he needs to do the things that humans do. And so because of that, I find him more relatable, and I can appreciate the things that he reads. Obviously, I appreciate the things that Steve Donahue reads a ton, but it's hard for me because I know that I'll never achieve that level. Like, I'll never be there. But anyway, so that's it. I think we're at 43 minutes, so that's maybe my longest video yet. I don't know. But it was fun. It was fun, and it's a good thing to do on a day like this where it's just like so freaking dreary. Oh my God. And it's been a dreary day in my soul too. So this is a good sort of mood booster, I guess. I think usually at the end of tags you tag other people, but a bunch of people have already done this tag at this point, and I don't know if anybody is interested in it. I think if you have not done it, and make it your first video. Do the BookTube newbie tag and then do this one. That'll be fun. If you have been watching a BookTube and wondering whether or not you should start it, do this. Do this as your first video, and then tag me so that I can see it. But that's it. Thank you, BookTube.